go to agenda item number 4, County Advisory Board's member items. Any County Advisory Board have any items you want to bring forward? This is for County Advisory Boards. Okay.
I'm vice chair of the Clark County
I
Camp.
saw Mr. Dixon sitting there. I'm going, what?
I brought up an issue at our meeting on Tuesday. It's not on the agenda. It was a request for antler spread on the hunter's questionnaire. And what brought that about is of all of our commodities in the state, mule deer is the biggest one. But we asked for main beam on the elk. We asked for points, or the length on the antlers and stuff for antelope. Biologists, they go and they do their surveys. They count, they classify the deer as mature, this and that. What led to this was on hunter questionnaire, we're only asking points. So if you have a 2-point and a 2-point, it's like, okay, everybody's perceiving this as the little tiny 2-point, which in fact you might have some that are 24, 26 inches and the 3 points. What I initially put it on there for was to help validate in writing what the biologists were actually seeing in the field. As they fly it and they see it in a certain area, they'll classify it. Well, now we've got the biologists that say that. The sportsmen are saying, I don't know if I believe all that or whatever. But when you have that data over a year, 10 years, 5 years, that says, look, the average size of our deer that we've been killing is this size. Not going to get into Boone and Crockett or any of that other stuff. I was proposing a slot. Because I'm sitting there saying, when we take that information, and somebody's got to enter that in an Excel spreadsheet or something, looking at it and say, look, is it 18 inches or less? 18 to 20, 20 to 22, something of that nature, so where we know the average health of the herds. Biologists see that, but now we can compile it just like we compile our results and everything else. And I just think that antler spread will help validate. It's not the catch-all, but it's never been asked. And the sportsmen are saying, look, this is the information we're giving them. I already know what they're getting, and that's how we got to where we're at. Right now, the deer is what the big hot topic item is, and they're saying, all I'm telling them is what I got. I got a 2-point, I got a 3x3, a 4x4. Well, you know, when we start looking at the class of our deer and stuff throughout the state, I'm just feeling it's a lot more beneficial information that we can have out there that the public would also see. And then Commissioner Macbeth even said, well, what's wrong with taking a thing and putting the actual width there? That's great. I think we should make that optional. But I'm looking at the person extrapolating that information and saying, okay, I got to put in a spreadsheet. How do I go 23 1/4 or 23 3/4? I'm thinking as an Excel spreadsheet, and you're putting a class down there, 22 to 24, whatever, you just put a 1. At the end of that, you push a button, it'll sort it and tell you how many deer were killed in the 22 to 24 range, 24 to 26, so on and so forth. The biologist in the areas can look at it and say, well, when we flew it, this is what we were actually seeing. This is hard proof, and this is proof that the public could see it. That's all.
Commissioner Macbeth?
What that raised in my mind was, is obviously we added main beam length to the questionnaire for elk. So that I got to thinking, well, if we're going to add spread to mule deer, are there studies, and maybe we just need to get a report from the biologist, but are there studies that correlate main beam length to age class for elk? And that's the basis for us asking that question. And is there a similar correlation between antler spread or maybe some other measurement with respect to mule deer? Because the information is not going to be any good to the biologist unless there is, probably some science-based study that tells us that that somehow it correlates to age class. And if it does, it's probably a good idea to confirm the model and how we do age class in the model. And so anyway, but I think we really need to see what the science is behind that.
Right. And you're absolutely correct. And what got me thinking is, okay, if you've got a deer that's 24 inches, 26 inches, we all know speaking, that's not a 1-year-old deer. So how long has it been feeding off the habitat? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Whatever. We're not really asking them to age it, but it helps. I know when the biologists classify it, what do we classify as a mature buck? I think that's one of the things that sticks in the mind of a lot of sportsmen. Says, well, to me, I got a 24 inch. I'm thinking that's 24. I'm not saying it's not, but it helps validate. It's not the catch-all, but all it is a checks and balance of, well, when we flew the area, we had this many, you talk about the deer to doe ratio. Well, they start classifying the deer, the bucks in the same time. So you've got that, but nobody sees that other than a biologist, and they help set the quota. But in the other hand, if you've got over here, you've got all the questionnaires and say, look, we had 7,000 deer killed last year in the state. There's our report out, 48% of them were 4 points. That's great. But of those 4 points, where did they range from? Are we killing off the young deer? Are we killing off the old deer? What are we actually harvesting? None of our surveys would tell that. The biologists might know the answer, but the sportsmen don't. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Gil?
For the record, Gil Yana, Carson Advisory Board. I'd like to go on record to, our CAB would like to show its appreciation for the contribution and manpower and equipment and time that the department expended to assist us in our kids' fishing derby a couple of weeks ago. It was a great success. We had over 300 kids all go home with new fishing rods and some big fish. I mean, you should have seen the smiles and the looks on these kids' face when they haul in a 2.5-pound trout. It was really something to see, and I know we got a bunch of new anglers out there waiting to buy licenses, but we want to thank you very much for all your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other county advisory boards? Seeing none, we'll close that agenda item. Move on to